ever get that feeling? You're in like a really important situation, right?
Yeah.
Giving a big presentation or trying to remember some crucial fact, and suddenly it's like your mind just goes totally blank.
Yeah.
Like poof, everything you knew is just gone.
Oh, absolutely.
It's so frustrating, but it's something we all deal with at some point, and I know you've dealt with this quite a bit in your research.
It's fascinating, isn't it? You have the skills you've put in the work,
Yeah.
but then when the pressure's on, it's like trying to hold on to smoke.
It just disappears.
It just slips through your fingers.
Exactly. So in this deep dive, we're going to try to figure out why this happens, why we choke under pressure, and more importantly, what we can do about it. How to stay calm, focused, confident when it really matters. You know, it's funny you mentioned this analogy in your notes about the young bird learning to fly.
Oh, yeah.
It practices and practices, but then that first leap, all that fear takes over and it forgets to flap its wings.
It's a perfect parallel, right? All that preparation, all that groundwork. But then at the crucial moment, the execution just falters.
And we've all heard the saying, pressure makes diamonds. Like,
right.
challenges can bring out the best in us.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that too much pressure can make us stumble. You would think that all that practice would guarantee we'd perform at our peak. But, as we've seen, choking under pressure just proves that that's not always the case.
And it's interesting what your sources pointed out is that we often think that choking means we just weren't good enough to begin with, lack of ability.
Right.
But what if it's actually the opposite? What if it's because we care too much about the outcome?
Yeah, that's a huge shift in how we usually see it.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't have the skills, it's that we're so focused on the result, on what might happen, that we overthink the whole situation.
Exactly.
And that's where the doubt creeps in, the anxiety starts to build, and it just throws us completely off our game. And it's interesting to think about this. This isn't just a modern thing, is it?
Not at all.
People throughout history and all sorts of different cultures have dealt with this pressure. It seems like it's a part of the human experience.
Whether as a performer in ancient Greece, facing a tough crowd, or someone today going through a job interview, that feeling of pressure, that anxiety, it's a common thread across human history.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into the practical stuff. When we start to feel that pressure building, what's a good first step we can take?
Well, a crucial starting point is really acceptance and self-compassion. Recognizing that feeling nervous in those high-pressure moments, it's perfectly normal.
Okay.
It's human to
Okay.
feel that way.
Yeah.
And being kind to yourself in those moments, that can actually help to reduce the intensity of the anxiety. Remember, we don't have to be perfect all the time, and making mistakes is a natural part of learning and growing.
That makes a lot of sense. There's so much pressure in our society today to always be at our best, to constantly be performing at the top of our game.
Oh, yeah.
And that just adds another layer of pressure, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's exhausting, and it can be debilitating trying to be perfect all the time.
Right.
Instead, focus on your own personal growth, your own journey. Value the effort you're putting in, rather than just chasing some external marker of success.
You know, this isn't just some theoretical idea either, right? We have real-world examples of this. Even top performers deal with it. You mentioned the story of Dan O'Brien, the decathlete.
Oh, yeah, Dan O'Brien. He was an incredible athlete, a phenomenal decathlete, considered a favorite to win gold at the 1992 Olympics.
Right.
He was incredibly skilled in all 10 events. But during the U.S. Olympic trials, he faced this challenge in the pole vault, clearing a specific height, something he'd done countless times in training.
It should have been easy for him, right?
You'd think so, but the pressure of the trials, the weight of expectations that got to him.
Wow, so what happened?
Well, he failed on his first attempt and then again on his second, and then with everything on the line on that third attempt, he just couldn't clear the height he needed. And shockingly, Dan didn't even qualify for the Olympic team that year. He later talked about how he was overthinking everything he said, and I quote, "I was thinking too much about everything instead of just doing what I knew how to do. I got stuck in my head."
That's so powerful and so relatable, I think, for a lot of us.
Yeah.
Here's someone at the peak of his athletic ability is years of training, and yet the pressure got to him in that moment.
It shows how powerful the mind can be. But what's also important about Dan's story is what happened next.
Yeah, what did he do?
He didn't let that setback define him. He learned from it. He actively worked on strategies to manage stress and pressure. And then at the 1996 Olympics, he came back. And crucially, he stayed composed. He didn't let the pressure overwhelm him, and he went on to win the gold medal in the decathlon.
That's amazing. What a comeback.
It's proof that we can learn and grow from these experiences.
And this isn't just about Olympic athletes, right? We see these kinds of pressure situations everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Think about someone giving a presentation at work, and they suddenly blank on their talking points.
Right. Or a musician who hits a wrong note during a performance.
Exactly. Or even someone in a job interview who freezes up when asked a question they know the answer to.
It happens to the best of us.
It does, and there's no single cause. And as we've discussed, no one-size-fits-all solution.
So we talked about that idea, pressure makes diamonds.
hmm
How do you see that now, given what we've been discussing?
Well, it's true that challenges can help us grow. They can build resilience.
Right.
But too much pressure can be crippling. It's about finding the right balance.
So the goal isn't to eliminate pressure altogether, because some pressure can be motivating, but to learn how to manage it effectively.
Exactly. And a good place to start is self-reflection. Think about times when you felt you didn't perform your best because of pressure. What was going on? What were you thinking in those moments? And talking about those experiences with others, that can be incredibly helpful.
Right. It normalizes the experience.
Exactly. And it can give you support.
Okay, so let's talk about some specific techniques. Are there things we can actively do to build our resilience to pressure in the moment?
Definitely. One technique is to intentionally practice under pressure. Think of an artist who usually paints in a quiet studio, but decides to practice painting in a busy park.
Oh, interesting.
At first, the noise the people watching might be distracting and make them nervous.
Yeah.
But over time, they adapt. Those things become just another part of the environment.
So by putting ourselves in those slightly stressful situations during practice, we can actually make those high-stakes moments feel less overwhelming when they actually happen.
Exactly. It's like building up a tolerance to pressure.
I like that. So if you know you get nervous speaking in front of groups, maybe practice your presentation with a few friends first.
Exactly. Greet those smaller pressure scenarios to build confidence.
Okay, what else can we do?
Another really effective technique is focusing on the present moment.
How does that help? When you're under pressure, it's easy to get caught up in worrying about what might go wrong.
That's exactly what fuels anxiety.
Right.
By bringing your attention to the here and now, instead of dwelling on those future anxieties, you can stay grounded and focused on the task at hand. Think of a tightrope walker.
Okay.
They're not thinking about falling off. Their entire focus is on placing one foot carefully in front of the other. By immersing yourself in the present moment, you can loosen the grip that those future fears have on you.
It's kind of like being in that flow state where you're so engaged in what you're doing that everything else just fades away.
Very similar. And then there's that inner voice we all have. Sometimes, especially under pressure, the voice can become really critical and unhelpful.
Oh, the inner critic.
Exactly the one that says things like, what if you fail? Or you're not good enough.
Oh, yeah, I know that voice well.
That kind of negative self-talk just amplifies the pressure, but you can change that internal dialogue. You can constantly replace those negative thoughts with positive self-affirmations.
So instead of thinking, what if I fail, you might tell yourself, I've prepared for this, I can handle this.
Exactly. It's about cultivating an inner supporter rather than an inner critic.
I love that. And what about our bodies? Are there things we can do physically to calm down when we're feeling the pressure?
Absolutely. Deep breathing is a powerful tool.
I've heard that before. How does it work?
When you take slow, deep breaths, it has a calming effect on your nervous system.
Okay.
It's like hitting a reset button on your stress response. When you feel that tension building your heart, racing your breath, getting shallow, take a few slow, deep breaths in and out. It can really help to ease that stress and bring back some mental clarity.
So it's a simple but effective way to regain control in a pressure situation.
Absolutely. And another great mental technique is visualization, specifically visualizing successful outcomes.
Like athletes who imagine themselves winning the race before it even starts?
Exactly. Many high performers use this technique. A musician might mentally rehearse playing a difficult piece perfectly. A speaker might visualize giving a compelling presentation. A student might picture themselves acing an exam. By creating these vivid mental images of success, you build belief in yourself and mentally prepare for real-world success.
It's like tricking your mind into believing it's already happened.
In a way. And remember, as we talked about earlier, everyone experiences pressure, even people who seem to handle it effortlessly.
Like Dan O'Brien.
Exactly. The key is how we respond to those feelings.
Okay, so to sum up, we've talked about accepting nervousness as normal, being kind to ourselves, and learning from experiences like Dan O'Brien's. We've also discussed practical strategies like practicing under pressure, focusing on the present moment, managing our inner critic, and using tools like deep breathing and visualization.
Right. It's about taking a holistic approach.
And remember that analogy of the young bird?
Oh, yeah.
At first, it was scared and forgot how to flap its wings, but it didn't stay on the ground. It kept trying. It remembered its ability to fly, and eventually it soared.
Overcoming that initial fear and continuing to practice these strategies and tapping into your abilities, That's how you learn to navigate pressure and reach your goals.
So for you listening, think about a recent time when you felt that pressure building. What strategies from today's deep dive could you use next time? Could you take a deep breath? Challenge that inner critic. Focus on the present moment.
Yeah, what's one technique we discussed that you can commit to trying next time you're in a challenging situation?
And as we wrap up, just a quick reminder of some of the key terms and phrases we covered today. Flapping its wings, taking a deep breath, gripped by fear, choking under pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, but can also make us stumble. The importance of overcoming doubt, the feeling of getting stuck in one's head, the tendency to freeze under pressure, remembering that it's okay to feel nervous, but striving to stay grounded even when tension is rising by taking a few deep breaths and learning to visualize success so we can overcome those high pressure moments.
These are all valuable concepts to remember as you navigate life's challenges.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and helpful.
We're always here to provide you with practical knowledge that you can use in your own life.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
See them.
Bye.